Imagine you're cleaning out your childhood bedroom. You find a shoebox under the bed. Inside of it, a stack of old Pokemon cards. Commons, bulk, the ones nobody ever cared about. You're about to throw them out, but something makes you stop. You pick one up. It's a Charmander. Looks the same as every other Charmander you've ever seen, except something slightly different. You can't quite place it, so you take a photo, upload it to an app, and you find out that that card is worth nearly $500. And that's not even close to the most valuable common in that box. This is a story about the cards everyone ignored, the ones that got thrown in shoeboxes, tossed in bulk bins, and traded for something better, and how those exact cards became some of the most sought after pieces in the entire hobby. Today, we're going to go through some of the most expensive common Pokemon cards ever, and by the end of this, you are going to want to go find that shoebox. Here's the thing about commons. When you're a kid ripping packs, commons are the enemy. You want the holo, you want the rare, the commons are just in the way. You flip past them, toss them in a pile, maybe trade them for something you actually want. And that assumption that commons are worthless is exactly what makes some of them insanely valuable today. Because here's what nobody was thinking about in the late 90s to early 2000s. If everyone treats a card like it's worthless, nobody protects it. Nobody sleeves it, nobody stores it carefully, which means when someone 20 years later tries to find that card in perfect condition, it's nearly impossible. And the ones that do survive in perfect shape, they become rare in a way that has nothing to do with the little symbol on the bottom of the card. Three things create value in common: the size of the print run, because not every set got printed in the millions; the condition survival rate, because nobody was protecting these; and set collector demand, because serious collectors want every single card in a set, including the commons and top grade. When all three of those things line up, a common becomes less common. Now let me take you through how that played out card by card. Let's go back to 1999. Pokemon cards have just hit North America and the world is losing its mind. Kids are buying packs, trading at school, carrying cards in their pockets, playing on the floor. And in the middle of all that chaos, something happens with the printing that almost nobody noticed. The very first run of English base set cards, the absolute first that came off the press, had something slightly different with them. There was no drop shadow behind the Pokemon artwork box. Every card that came after it had it, but that very first print run, shadowless. It's a tiny detail, the kind of thing you'd only notice if you held the two cards side by side and knew exactly what to look for. At that time, nobody cared. Why would they? It looked like the same card and kids weren't cataloging print variations. They were playing the game. So those shadowless commons went into the same shoe boxes as everyone else. Same pocket, same playground trade, same complete and total lack of protection. Fast forward to today, collectors now know exactly what shadowless means. And they want these cards badly. Not just the holos, but the commons too, because set completionists need every card from the first print run. And finding any shadowless card in PSA 10 condition, which means flawless, is genuinely hard. Because again, nobody was sleeving their Charmanders in 1999. So what does that look like in terms of actual money? A shadowless Bulbasaur in PSA 10 is around $679. Shadowless Squirtle is around $790, and Shadowless Charmander is around $489. Those are commons, cards that came in every base set pack, cards that kids everywhere had 15 copies of and didn't think twice about it. But none of those are the most expensive one. The Shadowless Pikachu, specifically the Red Cheeks variant, which is its own printing quirk within a printing quirk, in PSA 10 is $2,815. For a common Pikachu, the one card every single kid in 1999 had multiple copies of. The one that probably ended up in rubber banded to a stack of other cards in a drawer somewhere. And now in perfect condition, it's nearly $3,000. That's the shadow nobody noticed, literally. Okay, so the shadowless cards, people at least know about those now. They've been talked about. But the next chapter of this story is about a set that most collectors have never seen in person. In 2003, Wizards of the Coast was on its way out. They were about to lose the Pokemon license entirely, and Nintendo was taking it back in-house. And in the final stretch of Wizards printing Pokemon cards, they released a set called Skyridge as a part of the E-card series. Skyridge got one print run. One. And then the license switched hands and it was over forever. No reprint, no second chance, just whatever copies made it out into the world during the one production window. The set wasn't widely distributed as well. It didn't get the push that base set or jungle got. Most kids at the time didn't even know it existed, which means the total number of packs ever opened is a fraction of what you'd see from a major modern set. And here's what that does to commons. It makes them scarce in a way that has nothing to do with their rarity. A Skyridge Eevee is a common, but it's a common from a set with a tiny print run printed over 20 years ago that almost nobody was treating carefully. Finding one in PSA 10 today, flawless condition, is genuinely difficult. and the price reflects that. A PSA 10 Skyridge Eevee is $400. The Skyridge Snorlax in a PSA 10 is $658. $658 for a common Snorlax from a set most people have never heard of. And that's the lesson Skyridge teaches us. Rarity isn't always loud. Sometimes it just quietly disappears. One print run, one window, and then it's gone. The people who have happened to have those cards had no idea what they were holding on to. And most of those cards reflect that. Bent, played, lost over the years. The ones that survived in top shape are genuinely rare. Not because of any symbol on the card, but because of history. Now we're getting into the cards that most people didn't even know existed in the first place. And that's because they were never sold in stores. In the mid-2000s, Pokemon ran a program called Play, Organized Play, or POP. The idea was to reward players who showed up to local tournaments and league events. And part of that reward was exclusive cards. Not packs, not cash, cards that you could only get by participating. Think about who was at those events. Mostly kids and teenagers, competitive players who were there to play, not to preserve. So these cards got handled. They got carried in deck boxes without sleeves, they got shuffled hundreds of times, and eventually a lot of them just disappeared into collections that were never really meant to last. Pichu Bros from Pop Series 3 is a perfect example. On the surface, it's just a Pichu card. Nothing flashy, but it was never sold at retail and never opened in mass quantities. And almost nobody who had one thought of it as anything worth protecting. Today, a PSA 10 Pichu Bros is $1,073. Over $1,000 for a Pichu card that was handed out at a league event 20 years ago. And it's not alone. Cards like Plusle and Minimum from Hidden Legends fall into a similar category, commons from a mid-2000s set that barely anyone was paying attention to. A PSA 10 Plusle is $231. Minimum is $191. Not four-figure money, but still real collector value for cards that most people would throw straight into a bulk bin without a second thought. The common thread, no pun intended, across all of these is the same. The people who had them didn't know they were worth anything, which meant nobody protected them, which means finding one in perfect condition today is harder than it sounds. And that scarcity is real. Now, this next common card is the best one, the subscribe and like button. If you're enjoying this and you like Pokemon content, hit subscribe and like. I'm trying to hit 10K subs, and when we get there, I'm going to do something big for the channel. Every sub and like count and help the channel grow, so thank you. All right, back to it. I need you to stay with me for this one, because I know what you're thinking, and I promise this is real. Energy cards. I know. Just hear me out. When you think about what gets thrown away in Pokemon collecting, energy cards are at the very top of that list. You have hundreds of them. They all look the same. They serve one purpose. Nobody has ever looked at a basic energy card and thought, I should protect this. But here's what happened with a set called Call of Legends, released in 2011. The set had a notoriously short print run. It was printed once, didn't get a huge retail push, and then it was done. And collectors who want to complete that set, every card in perfect condition need every card, which is also including the energies. A PSA 10 Lugia Water Energy from Call of Legends is $329. The PSA 10 Ampharos Lightning Energy from the same set is $270, and even the Umbreon Darkness Energy from Heart Gold Soul Silver, for which we only have a PSA 9 data for, is sitting at $127. The reason is always the same. Short print run, favorite Pokemon on the card, nobody protecting these, and a real demand from serious collectors who won't stop until they get every card. When those things collide, even a basic energy card becomes a collectible, and that is the most important lesson of this entire video. It's never about what the card is, it's about the circumstances around it. Now let's take a step back, because this video isn't really about price lists. It's about a pattern that keeps repeating itself in this hobby. Every single card we talked about today followed the same path. At some point, it existed in the world without anyone caring about it. It passed through kids' hands, got shuffled, got tossed, got forgotten. The people who had them weren't doing anything wrong, they just didn't know. Nobody told them. There was no reason to think a common Pikachu or a basic energy card was worth protecting. And then time passed. Sets went out of print, conditions became measurable, collectors got serious. And slowly, the question stopped being what's the best card and became what's the hardest to find in perfect condition. Those are very different questions. And when you ask the second one, commons start showing up in the answers. The villain in every one of these stories is the same: assumption. The assumption that the common isn't worth anything. That assumption is why PSA 10 populations are so low on these cards, and low populations plus real demand equals real money. So we're back to that shoebox. the one under the bed, the one full of commons and bulk and cards nobody thought twice about. I'm not telling you that you're sitting on thousands of dollars. Most people aren't. But I'm telling you that this hobby has proven over and over again that the cards people ignore have a way of becoming the cards people chase. It happens with the shadowless starters, it happened with Skyridge, it happened with the Pop series cards. It even happened with energy cards. And the next time it happens, and it will happen, it'll be with cards that nobody today is paying attention to. So here's what I want you to do. Go check your old stuff, seriously. Not because you're going to find a $3,000 Pikachu, but because you never really know what you're holding until you look. Drop a comment below. Did any of these surprise you? The energy cards one gets me every time. And if you want to see what happens when a card goes from $5 to 16 million, go watch my video on the Pikachu Illustrator. That story makes everything we talked about today look like a warm-up. See you in the next one.